welcome to another episode of the Alley Report. Today we are talking with Laurel Hightower, author of Day of the Door, Crossroads, Below, and Silent Key. Thanks for being here.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge fan, and I feel like you've come up in like two or three episodes as far as when people start talking about like
Oh, that's so kind.
great horror writers. Yeah, no, you've popped up more than once. And uh, and one of the things I mentioned is how much Below creeped me out.
Oh,
Like without
good.
giving much
Yeah.
away, but like that was like I'd almost become immune. I thought to that like books can't creep me out anymore. It's like oh they can, great.
Good. That's a major accomplishment. Um, I when I was reading The Haunting of Hill House the first time, and I got that actual jump scare from, that scene where Theo's like, whose hand was I holding? Or no, I don't know whether it
Yeah,
was Nell who said it. But anyways, one of them said it, and I like it was an on the page jump scare. And after that, I was like, I want to be able to do that one day. So, yay.
yeah, just yeah, and absolutely Below really creeped me out. And I haven't started Day of the Door yet, but I've heard very similar things that it's very unsettling. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Well, and if you hate it, we can still be friends. It's fine.
Um, well, also I was going to ask. I know part of your bio is that you grew up in Kentucky, and when I think of that general area, like I think of like storytellers, ghost stories, things like that. Like that's kind of like my grandmother's family. That's where they came from. And do you think that was a huge an influence at all in the way you approach like writing horror or anything like that?
It's possible. I live in central Kentucky, so we don't have a lot of that flavor, I guess. It's
Oh,
more of a
okay.
very sort of like flat, you know. But there's a lot of oral history and I think just the general area, like the way that people are and the way that they speak and the way that they interact with one another. So it was very much like a culture shock when I moved to California. So yeah, that's actually something I hadn't thought about very much before because usually I just get like annoyed feeling like we don't have enough cryptids that belong to
Yeah.
Kentucky. But yeah, I mean, I do love that. I'm a big fan of Ron Kelly, and I love his like,
Mhm.
he's got such a cool tradition, like going back. His granny, was a big storyteller and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, I think that can definitely contribute. I don't think I knew many of the older members of my family, so yeah, but we're kind of a family of storytellers, yeah.
Um, yeah, I can sympathize with not having many cryptids, but then you get like someone like Damien Casey lives in West Virginia, where it's just
I
like,
know.
oh, that's where they all are. Like,
All of them are in West Virginia. I guess I can see why. There's a lot of good places to be encrypted there.
yeah, it's very rural, very very wooded. Something about it just has that flavor.
Yeah, it attracts them.
Speaking of cryptids, like what drew you to Mothman to like take on him specifically?
I loved how enigmatic he is. Because I always feel like with horror, I'm most affected before the reveal. When things are kind of in the shadows and your imagination is filling in all the blanks and it's the build up to it. And I feel like that's one of the more effective methods for me to experience horror. And so like I am not a creature feature writer. Hunter Shea takes that ball and runs with it.
Yeah,
He's amazing. There's a lot of creature feature authors that I'm just really love devouring their stuff. It's not as much me, although I say that and I'll probably end up doing it next year or something. But I just love that it's not as defined. I loved the Mothman prophecies, and I read the book that it was based on, John Keel's book, and there was so much more to it than I realized. A lot of just odd stuff. And again, the enigma, the like people didn't even always see the same thing. And it's unclear, like, did he have an effect on it? Did he cause any of these things? Or was it, simply just chilling and happened to be there because it was, observation time for a major event or something. So that was kind of why I was more drawn to Mothman, is because I felt like there was more to work with, and less chance of just regurgitating the same thing, that's already been done.
yeah, yeah. 'Cause it is like the some people say he was a harbinger or he was evil or he was just something that was just lost in this area. And yeah, the high strangeness when people recount it, that gets left off a lot. Like the UFO sightings, the strange lights, injured cold, like they kind of leave a lot of that
Yeah.
out.
Well, and the strange people, all those occurrences where John Keel would show up at someone's house, he was supposed to interview them, and they would swear he had been there 2 hours before. They were
Yeah,
like, "No, I've already talked to you," and he could never find out who these people were who were like very effectively impersonating him. All kinds of weird stuff with phone lines, calls being made, and just and the people that like would visit this area and not even necessarily having to do with him, but stuff that he found out during his investigation. Like these people are always wearing like ill-fitting clothes, and they seemed like they didn't breathe the atmosphere of the earth very well. So, there's kind of an insinuation there that, oh, we're talking about alien life or something like that. But there's just so many oddities, that just don't even quite come together on it. And I love that because I love a vista that you can play with, that you also don't necessarily have to stick to. People get pretty hype and protective over their cryptids sometimes, and it's like
yeah,
you did that wrong, you did. And while I do get that, I'm like, yeah, I'd rather work with something where I'm less likely to get yelled at. So
yeah. And then there's some like Mothman just lends itself to being creepy, but I also feel like Bigfoot lends itself to being creepy, but I don't see that pulled off as much as well, especially in movies for some reason.
yeah, I think it's hard, but I think that because I've wondered that too. Why is Bigfoot not as scary? Because when you think about it, you encounter this giant creature like out and about and you don't know what it is, like that is going to be terrifying. I don't know if it's just the imagery or maybe it's because Sasquatch and the beef jerky or
Yeah,
commercials just like took all the magic away. He's just a guy trying to eat beef jerky, which I get.
yeah, yeah. I just think it's one of those like that disconnect between reading like people's encounters and they describe it like very, very spooky. Like, oh, it's huge, but it moves making no noise. It's super fast, mimics voices. Like, it's like
Oh,
I
that's
don't.
I hadn't heard that element. It mimics voices. That's
I've heard
creepy.
I've heard things about like people hearing like it sounds like talking, but the more you listen to it, the more it's like it's not words, it's like somebody imitating talking, and they might see shape or see
Ooh,
one briefly. Yeah, it's like I feel like it lends itself to spookiness, and you don't see it a lot.
yeah. Again, I know Hunter has covered some of these things, so I need to
Yeah,
pick up
and
because I've
he's
read a number of his books. I haven't read any Bigfoot ones, so
no, he does a good job with it. He also gets like yeah, they should be. Yeah, he goes approach of like oh no, it's this thing that could rip you in half if it wanted to, and you gotta go. He always goes down that he goes down that angle a lot with it, which I
yeah.
appreciate.
Same. Yeah, because they can. They're huge. And that's what I sometimes think I would love to see more of because so like did you read Grind Your Bones to Dust by Nicholas Day?
I haven't no.
Okay, that was insane. And the critter, the scary creature, or donkeys, which sounds ludicrous. I have never been more afraid of a donkey in my life. I was like, I can't even look at this page. This is horrifying. Um, and I'm a Kentuckian. I grew up in horse country, and I'm very cliche. I drink bourbon, and I used to ride horses. Um, and horses are frankly terrifying because of the size and
Yeah,
because of how much they can fuck you up so easily and so quickly. And I almost sort of want to see that like touched on because I actually had, I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a weird rant here. Well, not rant, but just like little tangent because as we're talking, I'm trying to think of the effectiveness of how this would work. But like I couldn't watch Pan's Labyrinth past a certain point because the suddenness. Have you seen that? You seen
oh
Pan's
yeah,
Labyrinth?
I love that
Okay,
movie so very much.
so I don't think I'm spoiling anything because it happens like the first 5 minutes. But when the guy bashes the other guy
Yeah,
in the center of his head with the wine bottle. It was so fast and it was so unexpected and it was so frightening because you go from like feeling like you're in this normal situation having a conversation to like you're destroyed. And horses fucking do that, like
yeah,
they're just like you feel like you have rapport with these animals, you ride them all the time, you know how to deal with horses, you know how to approach them. And then all of a sudden they're just like, you know what, actually fuck you. Like I'm gonna mess you up like right now. And they do. And like I remember some of the riots, some of the protests and everything that I think were happening. It might have been Black Lives Matter, but there was a video of an older gentleman who was trampled he had a horse come down on him and you didn't see what happened to him. And there was a lot of like, oh, this is messed up. I'm like, that man is dead. He's either
Yeah.
dead or he's brain dead because like that was a big old horse coming down on him. And I don't know, it's scary. Like I love that, like finding the frightening elements in things that seem innocuous on the surface.
Yeah. Well, there's all this like especially in the 70s, they had a lot of environmental animal attack movies. And I love those,
Yeah,
but like horses are never really used. They're never it's always it's gonna be bears or snakes or things. But yeah, like the thing that's like, oh, those are horses, those are friendly, we ride those. And then like I said, they just cave your skull in and it takes no effort on their part. Like it's
yeah.
like you kicking a rock down the road and then they've caved your skull in or broken your ribs.
Yeah, I mean, these are injuries that are not. My mom actually broke her back getting tossed from a horse, like not to a paralytic standpoint, but she cracked a couple vertebrae that laid her out for quite a while. I got a concussion. I got picked
Ooh.
up by a horse and thrown across a stall, um, and
Like when you say
hit the
picked up, like
tailboard.
it like kicked you off, or did it like,
No, I was getting ready to at the beginning of our lessons, you always had to like tack them up. So you would brush them with a couple different brushes to get them all prepared and get the saddle blanket on and get the saddle on and the bridle and all this kind of stuff. And so I was reaching for his halter because there's a little clip that you can clip their halter just so that they're not moving their head so much. And I'd ridden this horse before, and I know how to approach horses. And I was walking up to him, and I had no sign that anything was going on. And I reached for his halter, and the next thing I know, I'm across the room or across the stall. He picked me up by the shirt.
oh,
Um, I'm assuming he probably got some skin. I really like I got a concussion from it, so my memories are a little hazy. But yeah, he threw me and I hit the tailboard. And I must have lost consciousness because yeah, I was like, kind of like woke up, like, what the fuck? And he's like across the stall like this, but I'm so out of it from this. Like he's holding my shirt. And I'm just like, give me my shirt back. So I just like go across the stall to this horse who's almost just, tried to murder me and get my shirt back. And but it really, they say it's that old cliche expression, you gotta get back on. Only so many times, I'm gonna be real, like only so many times do you get back on the horse before you're like, you know what? No, I think they're done with me and I might be done with them.
I mean, like when you say like I did all everything right, and still it just threw me across the room. Like, yeah, there's even more horror movies with horses in them. Like, they can be terrifying.
Right?
Like,
Yeah, like I don't see one stalking you because it would be a little bit, I don't know, I feel like that gets a little bit absurd. I need to figure out how to implement this though, because they were terrifying. I mean, and that horse actually ended up getting farmed out to the police force
oh
because he
great.
he made a terrible lesson horse. But then the police got rid of him too because he would pick up the cop. Like his riding officer would be standing in front of him, like trying to write a ticket, and he'd pick him up and like throw him. I'm like, all right, so it's not just me, I guess, at least.
This horse has it out for everybody.
Yeah, horse was just done with all of us. I'm sure we deserved it, honestly, but
It's like that Simpsons with the elephant when they're trying to explain why Stamp the elephant keeps hitting the other ones. Like sometimes they're just jerks, and then like cuts to Homer just running into the guy for no reason.
it's true. Well, they're yeah, I love have you seen Nope?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so the chimp side story in that is so terrifying to me because like monkeys on the surface, I'm like, I don't know, you're not scary, you're a monkey. But chimps, will fuck you up.
Yeah.
And it's that whole like, people think they know wild animals. They think that they're bonded with them. They think that they're safe right up until the second that they're not. And that is not in any way me trying to say like, oh, you get what you deserve. I understand it. I understand you feel this rapport with them. But they're big and they have their own thresholds and you don't know what those are. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
I mean, like the Travis the chimp thing. It's still up in the air exactly what set him off. But I mean, when he goes from like, oh look, it's the silly monkey. They dress up like people, and like he watches TV, and then he rips a car door off to try and get at a cop. Like it's
Yeah. Yeah. It's when you realize you are dealing with something that you can't fully understand and mostly what you owe at that point is respect.
which I feel like in animal horror, like that's always the thing of like reminding us that we don't have the control we think we do. Like, and we don't know everything we think we know. Like
Yeah.
being humbled. Like that's the horror of being humbled. Of like,
That's a good way to put it.
um, and oh, you have a. I'm a huge fan of short story collections, and I know you have one through Death Nail Press.
Mhm.
Every woman knows this.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it was so good to work with Red on that. That just turned out better than I could have imagined. She's such a talented artist and she's so organized and yeah, she was great for that because I'm also again as I mentioned previously, I'm a mess of a person that includes all of my organizational aspects. So I was like, here's my manuscript and she's like, okay, let's work on this order. Like really, and I was like, oh, okay, someone actually knows what they're doing. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's always great when you have someone that outside person is like, okay, I can step back and really see how this collection needs to come together.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big part of the reason why I'll never self-pub is because I'm too erratic. I'm too all over the place, as far as that stuff goes. Like, oh, I will get this manuscript done and I will give it to you, but it will need some reorganization, and things like that. And I'm just like, I just really need someone looking over my shoulder. Like, I'm not taking on that kind of responsibility.
Yeah, and also someone like Red, who's just a brilliant horror writer in her own right, like
Mm,
taking a look at your stuff. And
yeah. No, she's amazing. She had such fantastic insight that I wouldn't have thought of on it. And I just was in love with the internal illustrations on it, the way that she really got, the vignettes that were in there and stuff. So no, that was a lot of fun.
and uh and also two of your books you've gotten you had Trevor Henderson do the cover for, which is
Mm,
always, I feel like he just gets the mood of the of the book, of the story. Like,
yeah, I mean, I would love to see a coffee table book of his work for
oh yeah.
prompts, because it's just they're so eerie and they capture that just like not right aspect of, what's in the shadows that you're like, oh, that could be normal. No, it's not normal. Nope, whatever that is not, nope, not going to approach.
Yeah, it's like crazy. Everything seems like it's coming out of the dark, or it's like melting out of the dark. And it's like it could melt back just as quickly. Like,
Please too, go melt back into the dark. Don't come out. I don't want to see you.
actually, because it's like it's a creepy artist I like, but then my kids like just as much because Long Horse and Cartoon Cat and and all that.
Yeah. So they're into it. They don't get horrified by it.
No, they love it. My oldest has always been obsessed with like Siren Head and Long Horse. Like she has hoodies and
Oh, that's
posters, and
awesome. How old is she?
she just turned 13. She's
13. Okay.
been obsessed since she was 10.
That's awesome. My son is he despises all of my spooky imagery. He gets really annoyed at me. Like he'll come into my room and be like, "Turn that book over." Like, dude, you're in my room. But he's not a fan. But he's so funny because then he'll tell me like the most bloodthirsty body horror disgusting story and just like giggle his butt off about it. I'm like, "Okay, so it's the imagery, but you're going to give me
Yeah.
this stuff for my head. Thank you so much. Appreciate that."
Yeah, I feel like kids are a good link to horror. Like even when they don't realize it, they're just really good at they're really good at coming
They
up with creepy
really are.
scenarios and just creeping you out in general.
Regularly. Yes.
Yeah, like when my oldest was like 2, or like she was having breakfast at the table and she was like, "I like your shirt." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And she's like, "Not you, him." And she points to an empty corner. And I'm like, "Hey."
So at that point, like, do you pursue it or are you like, I'm gonna look over here
I was
and
just like,
see,
well, I'm like, at that point I want to ask questions. I'm like, "Well, what does he look like?" And then after that she's like moved on because they're 2-year old and
yeah.
they can hold on to things like a goldfish. So she's already moved on to something else.
And it's not that big of an occurrence for her. It's just like, oh, there's this dude sitting at the table, nice shirt. I
Yeah, just
really,
nonchalant.
I believe it has been my experience with my kid as well that I feel like where they're closer to the veil where they've more recently come through,
Yeah.
right up until probably 3 or so, I noticed there was a lot of that because I was giving him a bath one day. And, he points behind me. He's like, "Who's that lady in the blue dress?" And I'm like, "Okay, I don't know. Hope she's friendly." You know, I still don't know who the lady in the blue dress was, but it shouldn't bother me. So that's
Yeah.
good at least.
And they're never afraid because just like it's just a thing that happens. Like,
Except, and I've told this story before, so you can stop me if you've already heard it. But just so during the pandemic, I would take him to outdoor places, so we could play and still get out and about. And I took him to Ashland, which is the Henry Clay Estate here in Lexington. And there is it's got the old house that they lived in, and also like, other like the ice house, and there's like a smokehouse. And it's only where they hung their smoked meats. Like there's nothing like creepy or whatever about this. It's just where they hung the smoked meats, but it's a very like it's open, it's a good sized room basically, and there's not much in it. There's like straw on the floor, and there's like a like a tailboard sort of looking thing over here. And we take one step inside, and he stops cold, and he says, "Mommy, we need to leave. That man over there does not want us in here." And I'm like, "Okay, we're gonna bounce like immediately, like right now." Like, and it bothered him, which meant it bothered me a lot
Yeah.
because he's so, he'd make those weird observations, but that he was like, "Mommy, he does not want us in there." I'm like, "I will not stay here any longer, and also I'm
Yeah.
never
No,
coming back."
I would heed his warning as well.
I always have, to the point where sometimes my husband's like, "Stop feeding it." Like he wants reassurance. I'm like, "Dude, what if it's really there? I don't want to be the person who's like, no, go back to bed while there's like a vampire leaning over him.
Yeah, like
I'm
err
gonna be
on
the
the side
parent
of
that believed
caution.
you and yeah, traumatizes my kid in my own way."
Yeah, see, I think the not believing I think just like I saw something weird in the house when I was really little, and like my parents like they talk about now. They were like, well, we don't want to say we don't believe him or make him feel bad or anything, but we also don't want to feed into it and make it where he never goes to sleep again. So they talk about around that line of like, well, maybe you missaw something or whatever, but the whole time then they were creeped out because they were like, what if he did see something?
Yeah. Well, at least, at least they knew enough to like kind of be alert, be like, "I don't know, okay, let's keep an eye out."
No, when we finally moved out of that house, my dad was like, I felt creeped out there all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was like, I'm not gonna
Guys.
say it. He was like, I'm not gonna say that to like my young child who thinks he saw ghosts, so I'm not gonna say that. But no, I was creeped out all the time.
That's the thing.
It
That
wasn't
is
just
the other
you.
That's the thing about being a parent too, is like the way that you have to just like go through life, like with all this insanity happening, like you could be scared out of your damn mind, and you still have to be like, "Oh, it's fine. Come on, bud. Yep, I got you. You know
Hmm.
what? Don't look over my shoulder. Actually, I think you should just stay. Keep your eyes closed. And just I the scene in Aliens where Ripley's got Newt, over her shoulder, and she's just
Yeah,
like anticipating, like, "Okay, we're about to get eaten. Just don't look. I'll look
yeah.
for
Look
us."
away, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just like, especially as a parent now, I'm like, yeah, yeah. Don't know what else you do there.
um, well, we kind of covered this, but like, talk about like what makes horror get under your skin, like, and I think like we kind of covered when the familiar becomes unfamiliar.
Hmm.
And when you're humbled by that, what else do you think makes like effective horror, like in a book, in a movie, like to it really resonates?
So I think, and it's along the same themes of what we were talking about before, but when you take something that is meant to be like a base of safety, like your baseline, this is my most safe place, and makes it very clear that it's not, that there's that like your home is no longer your haven because there's something there. Or man, The Grudge messed me up because like I'm 42, and I still like if I get freaked out, I'm gonna jump in my bed and like, go like this.
Oh, it
And
crawls up the bed.
yes, like, and I was like, "Oh my, no, you're violating so many rules right now. You can't do that. I'm safe in my bed." So those sorts of things, where you suddenly have this exposure, because I feel like a lot of times, and I shouldn't speak for anyone else, but I feel prepared for a large number of situations. Like, I'm not gonna go like scale Everest or anything, but like I'm I'm in fairly good shape. I can run fairly fast, I don't want to, but I could, and so like I don't feel a lot of apprehension like taking my kid hiking or just like operating on a normal basis. Like I feel fairly confident. And it's watching that confidence be stripped away. It's watching like and the interactions. Like I am very much a supernatural horror person. I don't go as into the human monster stuff, although definitely read some really effective stuff about it, but my preference is more for like the supernatural kind of thing. But just studying the dynamics of like just the suggestion of things. Like I think the use of sound is so impressive. I guess it doesn't really work in a story standpoint, except if it's well described. You got a lot of writers who can put you right in that room with it to where you feel like you're hearing it, and it's just this. You can picture it, and um, it's just it's taking away that safety. It's taking away the ground beneath your feet, and creating a danger and a risk. And then ultimately, I think the most important element for me has always been character development. If I don't care about the character, then there's not as much in the way of stakes as far as what might happen to them. So it's always the character building in there that makes it the most effective and bothers me the most in a good way.
Yeah. No, I definitely think when I think of, horror novels that really affected me or movies, things, it is like I cared about the characters. They
Mhm.
gave people to care about. Um, because yeah, slashers can be fun, but sometimes, when people are just cardboard mannequins to be slashed through, you just kind of like, I don't know, it becomes background noise. Like it doesn't become a thing and you're invested in. You're more likely to pick up your phone. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I am bad about that. I started gauging my interest level in movies, like how often did I pick up my phone? Which
Yeah,
is,
when one's
yeah,
like, I
it's
was tempted
habit, but
once.
yeah. I feel like that's part of the reason I was really impressed with the Chernobyl miniseries was because like that's a long ass, thing to watch. And I never picked up my phone once. I was just like completely riveted by it. And I go back and rewatch it all the time because it's just an absolute masterclass in tension building and in that juxtaposition of human bravery and the best of humanity coming up against the most ludicrously bureaucratic bullshit of
Yeah,
humanity. And that it's the and I think what has always drawn me so much to like these like nuclear disaster sort of things is the bizarre inevitability of death. Like I find the idea of the death penalty deeply disturbing.
yeah.
um and it's the same thing with like the radiation sickness. It's like you could have this exposure to something and you're not dead yet, but you're essentially the walking dead. And that there's just, and looking at these people who had to make the decision to expose themselves to something that they knew was going to kill them, and not just kill them horribly.
Yeah.
um and how they react to that. I don't know, sorry, I didn't mean to get on that, but because Chernobyl is not really considered horror, but to me
I
it
mean, I would
it
consider it horror.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, it really encapsulates all that kind of stuff. And again, it is those human elements, that really just kind of make it.
yeah, I mean, like, because then when you read, behind the scenes stuff, they're like, okay, well, we had to like, this character is actually a combination of multiple characters and things like that. Then when
Yeah,
it gets to like, what that one firefighter looked like after being exposed to radiation, they're like, oh no, that was no exaggeration. That
yeah,
was like, I mean, that is like just, and it was just he walked in that room and picked up a piece of graphite, looked at it, and that was it. It's like the demon core
yeah,
thing. Like, it's cores opened up and exposed to a scientist across the room for like a split second, and that's enough. He's a dead
yeah,
man. Like, in he's just staying there feeling normal for a moment, but in the days to come.
yeah. And it's your cells are already breaking down and there's nothing you can do about it. It's so disturbing.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like, I know there's what's it's a nuclear war, something by Annie Jacobson, I think, that's like just come
Oh,
out where she goes with a scenario of what happens when nuclear war breaks out. And I've been told by people, it's like, this is the scariest thing I've ever read in my life. And it's like her like, this is what happens, when the war starts. And that's always been
that's
my, it just seems like it's gonna happen eventually, right? Right? Like we can't keep skirting our oblivion forever. Like, I don't know. That's one thing that always keeps me up at night. So
yeah. I mean, same, which makes me be like really interested in reading that and also deeply horrified because maybe there
it's
may
it's
be things that I don't want to visualize from that.
it's been on my Amazon cart for like 2 weeks. I just can't pull the trigger because I'm just like, I just don't know. I already have scenarios that keep me up at night. Like, what happens when the bombs? I don't know if I need to know
Oh
exactly
my
what happens.
God. I know. I and this is something I try to be aware of with my kid because, they absorb so much more than anybody thinks, and they internalize even, and the fact that they don't talk about it does not remotely mean that it hasn't affected them. And my dad used to, just as a matter of like just discourse, like he would sit there and talk about all these scenarios for the end of the world, and like just like, yep, and then this would happen, and then yeah, and like I think he asked me, I could not have been more than 6 or 7. And he was like, if you got the scenario where you can push a button and either just save yourself and everyone else dies, or you push this other button and you die, but everyone else lives, I mean, I was really young. I'm looking back on this like, what is wrong with you? Why would you post this to a kid? But I remember immediately being like, oh, I would push the button that saved everyone else. Like, because I couldn't, I'm like, I can't, I couldn't handle the end of everything else. And he immediately says, like, well, just so you know, the next person in the chair would just kill everyone else and save themselves. I'm like, thank you.
Your sacrifice was moot, child.
Yeah, your altruism was the wrong answer.
See, I'm bad about if my kids ask me anything. I'll be like I think one of them did ask one time, like, could the world end? And I'm like, I mean, in multiple ways. Like,
I know.
of course it can end. And then like later, I find out from my wife that the answer was no, don't answer that. But then they know like one time my youngest was like, what's cannibalism? Do people actually eat each other? And I'm like, well, the thing is, like, sometimes it's ritual, sometimes it's a religious thing, like
It's not going to happen to you, honey. I feel like that's the main thing that they need to know. It's like, oh,
yeah, it's not gonna happen to you. But now they should know, like, whatever you ask, Dad will answer. Like, just throw something weird, he'll answer you.
I mean, that's a good trust building mechanism too, though, because they know that you're not going to lie to them about it. I think that's big.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it is. Like, all the times I've traumatized him by answering too honestly.
But I mean, you're there for follow-up questions,
That's
and
true. That's
and
true.
all that kind of thing. So, yeah, because I mean, we can't. I'm a big fan of like gentle parenting, so I'm not like, going to try to toughen him up or anything, but there are some things that it's like, because I just remember like, I have always had intrusive thoughts and that kind of thing, and he has those now, and it doesn't help to just ignore things,
Yeah.
and to pretend. It's like you have to almost come at them in a different way, like, okay, that's a scary thought. Let's sit with it for a second. Now let's talk solutions. Let's talk what we can do. Let's talk, scenarios, all this kind of thing. And I've it seems to me as though that's more helpful than just being like, no, it'll never happen. It's fine. Like he did ask me at one point, um, I don't know what had happened, why he got on the subject of death, but he was like, Mommy, if Jesus came to get you, would you go? And I was like, have I ever done anything someone's told me to do? Absolutely not. No. Like, and he was just like, oh, good. I was like, yeah, that's right. Rebellious.
I'll fight him.
Just as long as you know your mom is meaner than everyone else, then you'll be fine.
Exactly. Like, I'm ready to fight God. Like,
Yeah,
let your
dude, I
kid.
so would. If I needed to, I would. Like, all right, I know I'm gonna lose. Leave my kid alone. Gonna mess you up. Gonna go
I've,
down
I've
swinging.
al- I've always said, like, if I got a chance to go ahead, it's like he gets one good hit. He's earned more, but he gets one good hit from me. Just like you turned your back on too many things. You need this. Your dad
It's
getting
your,
good at this too when you were younger.
it's your wake up call.
Well, thank you again for coming on here. This has been amazing. To
Absolutely,
anybody,
it's my pleasure. Thank you.
yeah, and to anybody watching or listening, check out below Day of the Door, Silent Key. Every woman knows this. I mean, just if it's got Laurel Hightower on it, it's quality. It'll creep you
Thank
out.
you. You're
Of
so good for my
course.
ego. Thank you.
Hey, there we go. Thank you again.